Greetings, programs. Welcome to episode 41, Why Conspiracy Theories Are So Strange. So, we have another more psychological episode for today, slightly related to the previous one. In my previous talk, I talked about capitalism and why it doesn't work and never did, by various different measures. Today's talk is going to slightly relate to that in a roundabout sort of way. So the central part of today's discussion is, why are the conspiracy theories so damn strange, so far from reality, when there are legitimate and demonstrable conspiracies actually happening? You know what I'm talking about. Conspiracies about chemicals in the water to turn the frogs gay, chemtrails in the air, flat earth, depopulation, lizard people in the government, the Illuminati. The list is endless. And these conspiracies are pretty nuts, and pretty far out. What do I mean? Well, take the flat earth, for example. For that to be legit, everyone involved in spaceflight, satellites, telecommunications, cartography, flight, astronomy, and large-scale construction all have to be in on it. Every one of those millions of people has to be lying and keeping it a secret. Because all of those people rely on accurate data about the Earth, orbits and such to be able to work. Hell, I worked for an internet company once and we could not do our job without accurate data about the curvature of the Earth, as we had to plot line-of-sight microwave lengths, and over a distance of several kilometers you have to account for the curvature, or you don't get any internet. Also, sunsets are a thing. Seriously, if someone tells you the Earth is flat, tell them to call a friend that they trust at sunset, and when they do, if they ask their friend if the sun is still up or down, they will tell you it is already set, or it is still up, when for you it's touching the horizon. The sun cannot set on a plane. Only a curve can explain this. So yeah, that's pretty wacky. Partly because people are just not that good at keeping their mouths shut. Hell, the President of the United States couldn't keep Watergate quiet. So, nutty. Yeah. So what? Well, why are they so nutty? Well, first I have to explain a few things. I do not live in the UK, but I am from there. I was born there, grew up there a bit, before my parents dragged me off to another country. So why does that matter? Patience, I'm getting there. Now, the UK just had an election, and Labour lost pretty badly. No, not because they had terrible policies. Those exact same policies led to the most massive Labour growth since polling began. Brexit screwed them. It was a mess. But also this other thing. There was a massive smear campaign against Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader. And when I say massive, I mean it. 24/7, round-the-clock attacks. Too far left, too far right, too mean, not mean enough, too lower class, not lower class enough, the list goes on. Nothing he did was good enough. And according to some polls done by both the left and the right, the number one reason that people had for not voting Labour was not policy. In many cases, it wasn't even Brexit, and that was a lightning rod. No, it was Jeremy Corbyn is bad. But when asked why, they didn't know. Now that is a sign. When somebody knows something, but does not know why they know it, or they cannot come up with a chain of reasoning that explains it, that's how you know it's an implanted idea. Propaganda. Even the claims of anti-Semitism. That's right, somehow a lifelong anti-racist called Jeremy was suddenly a racist, according to the media. Are there anti-Semites in Labour? Of course. Are there more anti-Semites in the Conservative parties? Yes. Why? Because the UK is fucking racist. And folks like that are often drawn to authoritarian groups. Like the Conservatives. Trust me, when I was there, I was fucking racist. And I am Jewish. Or at least slightly Jewish. Super racist? Not really. But casually, unthinkingly racist. It's a thing. And it's a thing not unique to the Labour Party. And in all honesty, they are somewhat less racist than the general population. None of which makes Jeremy an anti-Semite. That's a person who is anti-Jewish, if you didn't know. Okay, so what's this new thing got to do with anything? Well, that's the whole point. There was a literal conspiracy to paint Jeremy Corbyn as anti-Semitic as a way of discrediting him, by multiple media companies, all led by big business, all owned by billionaires. See footnote number 1, Jeremy Corbyn is attacked no matter what he says or does. Right, most conspiracy theories are BS. For some, like the coordinated media attacks on Jeremy, like Nixon's Watergate way back, some are real. So, obviously, the conspiracy people will be right all over this, yeah? No. Oddly. No, a few mentioned it in passing, but otherwise nothing much. You'd have thought they would be leading the charge. Something legitimate. Something that they could prove with real, solid facts. And we get almost nothing but crickets. That seems odd. Someone championing that cause would have it made, right? Solid evidence that they could point to and say, see, proof. But they don't. If anything, they go the other way. See, Alex Jones, forever ranting about the liberal media. Oh sure, the liberal media might be okay with gay people, but they're as economically conservative as anyone. This is why the left-right spectrum has at least 2 axes, one social, one economic. And these people, they are not liberal in any meaningful sense of the word. Left-wing? Hardly. Right-wing pretending to be left because it's in their interest to be seen as liberal. So why are all these people not complaining about what's actually going on? Well, some of them are just in it for the money. There have been a few flat earthers that have been caught out admitting it, and Alex Jones, of course, has admitted to such in court. That doesn't explain everybody. Why are they so silent about one of the true, demonstrable conspiracies of sorts in the world? And do please note, not all conspiracies are active. Not all are deals made in rooms full of cigar smoke. No, a conspiracy can be undirected. A group of people, like the super rich, all acting in their best interests in the same way, without necessarily coordinating. All doing the same thing. Bashing leftists or perceived bad guys like Jeremy without actually talking to each other. They can look at what the others are doing and say, hey, that's a good idea, and jump on the bandwagon, without a word of communication. Well, I have an idea about these conspiracies. I suspect that the conspiracy theorists are raving about silly conspiracies, and not real ones, for similar reasons that anti-choice protesters advocate for the rights of fetuses, but not for living children. A fetus will never ask anything or demand anything from you, the protester. A child might. Therefore, it is a safe topic. Same as opining about what's hidden in the core of Jupiter as opposed to what's over the fence. You can just look over the fence and find out. Same here. By going on about fire art stuff like lizards, I suspect that these people feel safe. They're talking about things that on some level they know they will never have to deal with. You see the same when religious believers talk about the origins of the universe, as opposed to the very concrete things that are written in the Bible. For example, Matthew 17:20, King James Version. And Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief, for verily I say unto you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. End quote. That's really concrete. That's Jesus putting his money where his mouth is, so to speak. And that's why you never hear believers using this passage to argue their faith. It's too solid, too black and white, and it's just too easy to put to the test. You'll only ever find non-believers using this passage to prove a point. And this, I believe, is key. If the moon turns out to be a hologram, yes, that's a real conspiracy theory, what fundamentally changes for anyone? Not much. It's not like you had a moon trip planned and now you have to cancel. What changes if it turns out the Earth really is flat? Not much. The sun still rises, or appears to. The day is still around about 24 hours long, and water is still wet. Unless you work for NASA or are a pilot, there's no real change. What if lizards are really running the country? Well, that's not really much different from big business running the country. No change there, to be honest. But what happens if your problem that you're investigating is real? What happens if there is a concerted campaign by the rich, who are economically right-wing, to attack and destroy parties or leaders who are economically left-wing, regardless of the position of those people who are in charge on gay people or black people. Well, now that's a problem, because the policies and economic politics of the left, once shorn of all the fiddly bits, like being nice to people who look different, are all basically the same. They are policies that favour the majority of people, the 99%, rather than the 1%, the working class. Rich people exist. They own stuff. They are powerful. But they are outnumbered 99 to 1. And that means, in a democracy, they are going to get hammered, because no one is going to vote for a policy that makes one guy fantastically rich and screws 99% of the rest. So in order to get people to go along with them, they had to modify their policies, to water them down, so they didn't make the rich obviously richer, but left them with exploitable loopholes to do it in the background. Except now, we live in an era of corporate control of the media. And this media can not only spew obvious propaganda, but it can also influence algorithms and internet traffic to make your site more or less popular. See footnote number 3 for a discussion of this. Now, they can just lie outright. And if all avenues of media are saying their message, then the majority of people are just going to go along with it. Why wouldn't you, when every channel, every news show, and every newspaper is saying more or less the same thing? This means they no longer have to modify their policies to appeal. They can just do the policies they like, spin a story about how it will be great, and by the time anybody realizes they were sold down the river, it's years later. And usually, the Conservative Party in a particular country can blame someone else for the problem. Immigrants are a classic. You notice that every major country, from the US to Europe, is raving about immigrants. The other? It's not a coincidence. And most of those immigrants are fleeing a mess that the complainers made, especially in the US. This all sounds pretty terrifying, but what's that got to do with conspiracies? Well, here's my point. All of this should be right up their alley, yes? War, billionaires, shadowy control over the media, over elections, scads of evidence everywhere. So why are they not all over this? Well, my suspicion is this. Like man-made climate change, it's scary. And people want scary things not to be true. If they did acknowledge it as true, they'd be scared, and or have to do something about it. So I suspect that very few people who talk about secret lizard people running the world actually believes it. Because that makes it safe. Because on some level, they know there are going to be no hit squads coming after them, filled with lizard people. But they can fantasize to their heart's content. Whereas with real issues, like climate change, or wealth inequality, or corporate oligarchs, well, those things are hard systemic issues to fight. There is no convenient head of the beast to cut off and solve the problem. The only fix is a long grind to change the system. And if you do start causing problems for some oligarch, enough for them to actually notice you, they will in all likelihood just use the system to squish you, simply by getting a bylaw change so that now you need an expensive license to do whatever it is that you're doing. Or to simply point the police at you. Most people will have broken some law or other, so if someone looks close enough, well, they can find something to get you in trouble with. I'm from the UK, as I said, and this matters because there was a conspiracy there, and loudly televised. A literal propaganda campaign against a specific leader of a political party, Jeremy Corbyn. Similar things are happening with Bernie. Yes, a concerted, orchestrated attempt to subvert democracy, in one country and another one in another country, by powerful and shadowy billionaires that own the media. See footnote number 3 for the Bernie blackout. Yes, it's real. Now the thing is, that's hard to fight. That's fighting the Imperial fleet, not just blowing up the Death Star. And humans like quick fixes. That's why the Death Star blows up at the end of the movie. It just bang, problem solved, right? So that's my thesis. That conspiracy theories are so far out because that makes them safe. Safe in that no one is going to do anything to you or matter in any way. They are not going to come after you to conceal the truth about the Earth being flat. There is no reason. If the Earth really was flat, somebody would be making money with tours, or disposing toxic waste by throwing it over the edge, or by building a gondola system up the side of the dome because it's more cost effective than faking satellites. or mining the dome for an infinite supply of glass. Or you could punch a hole in the side of the dome and install wind turbines for reliable infinite free power, because it would take like 10,000 years before it had any effect on the atmosphere. Or mining the infinite ice plain for fresh water and shipping it in bulk to Africa or Iran. Or, well, you get the point, the list goes on, and we're not seeing any of those things. It's why if you have one of those free pass lists that you and your partner make up for who you're allowed to sleep with should the occasion arise, there's a real difference between putting Brad Pitt on the list and the neighbor across the street. Because one of those is a hell of a lot more likely to be an issue than the other, and you can see why. Because it's more likely by far to actually result in something happening. That's why the problem always gets put far away and hard to investigate. Same for advocating for things like the rights of the unborn, aka taking away women's rights. Because unlike actual living children, the unborn will never actually call you on your words, or demand that you actually do something, and so that makes it safe. I'm not really sure how to end this, but I've said my bit. It's a suspicion, not a theory backed by masses of evidence. Crazy, far-out theories are safe and can act as a deflection or psychological protection against the real scary things happening in the world, like climate change. So that's why it's all crazy, because crazy is safe and far away, and does not need you to actually do anything. That's all for now. Tune in next time for something else, possibly political. Bye for now.